Hello, everyone. This is Lee Andrews with another Live with Lee, and today it is a distinct pleasure to have Khadija Jordan with me. And in full disclosure, as many of the people that have been on the Live with Lee broadcast with me, I have known Khadija for quite a few years. You could say that we grew up in the government space together, and we're still trying to figure that out, Khadija.
That's right.
So one of the reasons that I asked Khadija to be here today is because she is a business owner. She is a business leader in a corporate sense. And so she's played both sides of that desk. She's also played the side of candidate, of hiring manager, of leader, of customer. So I think it's important to understand how she's doing what she's doing, because at the core of everything that Khadija is doing is mindfulness. We've heard a lot about that word. We've seen a lot about it, but how do you really apply it to your life? So before we get that going, I do want to say that Akathame is really and truly open for business now. It's taken a year, but we did launch a couple of weeks ago. Nate is right. And so our goal is to really turn the entire recruitment and hiring practice on its head. And we do that by focusing on the talent first. And if you are interested in learning more about that, please don't hesitate to reach out to me after this or at any time. So Khadija, let's get to your questions. First of all, you were a brand manager at PBS, Public Broadcast. Then you went out and broke out on your own to become CEO of Gradient Branding. And that's when you and I met in the beginning.
That was a long time ago.
6 years. And then somewhere along the line, the universe had you focusing on mindfulness. And so apparently that was your strategy in your own business. And now you are teaching others how to use mindfulness to support their business, while holding down another full-time overseeing marketing and sales for another government contractor. So I don't know when you've got time to do all this, but let's start with the first question. What in God's name prompted you to start your own business back in 2014?
Well, I was working a lot. I'm like a workaholic, and I kind of enjoy the feeling of just creating. And so I will always kind of have that as a part of my personality. Now, that did lead me to making myself sick. So after how long was I at PBS? About 4 or 5 years. I was just working on the weekends a lot. I was traveling a lot, maybe like once a month to twice a month at max. And one day I woke up and the right side of my face was paralyzed. And I was in shock. I had developed Bell's palsy. And I said, well, shit. Oh, I'm sorry.
This is not rated for children, so you can speak freely.
I was just shocked, right? And it changed my life. I had done nothing but give myself to this experience, this job, and neglect what I needed. And I woke up with an illness, with a condition. And the first thing my physician said, because they said there's only a couple ways you can get it. It's usually either through a viral disease or it's stress. And she was like, you don't have anything. So what's been stressing you out? And it was work, just the natural everyday going through the motions that we do. And so at that point, I realized that I needed to take control of my life. There was things that I wanted to do, and if I was going to do them, I needed to do them now, because it really scared me. Like, what if I didn't wake up? It really kind of jarred me. And so that was the year that I started my business.
Okay, so owning your own business, you don't think is as stressful as working at that?
Here's my perspective on that. I was at that point, because that was such a hard experience. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to die, I'm just going to do it on my own, but doing something that I really love. That was kind of the mindset I was in. And so I just was invigorated with all of this motivation, and I started my business. Now, as you know, when you start a business, it's not all gravy just because you decided to do it. So I embarked on this journey, and it was very hard. It was a long journey, and I still did not pay attention to myself. And so what I did was I kind of created a replica of what I had just left. So now I was an employee of myself, just beating myself up, doing as much as I can, working more than I had ever worked at any job.
Right.
And still I didn't get it, right? I had my own thing and I was going, kind of okay, but I still didn't get it. And so I really was trying to figure out, as many new business owners and small business owners are, how do I grow my business? How do I, convey my service and my product? And that's around the time that we met. And, I went down a few areas, and it wasn't until after I had really grown, gotten a couple of contracts and really started working, that I saw that most of the time, whenever I am in a better space mentally, or once I've started kind of learning a little bit about my own stress, then somehow my business would start booming, or something would just come out of the sky, and, some contractor would be referred to. And so I started to really kind of dive into this idea of mindfulness and connecting the mind, because I had struggled with depression for many years, and sadness around the death of my father that just crushed me for so long. I just could not get over that. And so that was always there. I was just doing business and putting in the background. So as I started diving into that, I saw that my own business was growing as my mind was growing. And then I put two and two together when I was dealing with my clients, because literally 90% of the time, my consulting had to do with talking them into doing something and convincing them that they could do this, and what is holding you back, and why are you, when you get this big proposal now that we just won or we just got, why are you feeling, beating yourself up about that? It's because we have complexes that we have not healed from, and we're trying to go do business, and we can't see the connection between our minds and the success that we're trying to reach in our business. And so then it kind of clicked for me, and I was like, people do need, marketing and business development and all of those things that I'm good at doing and that I have been doing all these years. But what they also need, what entrepreneurs also need, is someone to help them, guide them through that process of mindfulness development and developing those habits and practices that are really going to get you to a place of peace that then can translate into ROI for your business in many ways.
So, Khadija, some people are just born with that ability. They just know it. They do all the right things. Their mind is right where it needs to be. And then others aren't. Is this an actual teachable thing? Can people actually retrain their minds and their thinking to be entrepreneurs? Or are some people not able, just in what's the word I'm looking for, constitutionally incapable of making that shift?
Everybody is capable of making it, because one of the things as human beings that makes us different than animals is that we have willpower and we have consciousness about what's going on around us. And even though we may have been traumatized by something, we have the ability to understand that this did happen to me. And we have a sense of who we are, right? We have a sense of purpose. People are not born with the ability to be, just extremely mindful and create happiness. That is directly related to the experiences that you've gone through in life. So someone may have had a different childhood that was a lot more, lenient or fruitful or substantive, or they were able to have all these different experiences, and then those things may have contributed to their ability to understand certain concepts. But it is all nurture. It's not something that people just are born with. And that concept is really one that people kind of get caught up on, because it makes you feel like, gosh, if I wasn't born with it, then I guess I'm just doomed. And that's not the case at all. You have the ability to develop your mind, because you have the ability to think a thought, and you have the ability to not think a thought. You can't control your emotions as, just them coming on, but you can control how long you live in the space that they create for you in your mind. So one thing that people misunderstand about manifestation and law of attraction and mindfulness is, well, I'm just trying to be happy all the time, and I'm not trying to pay attention to anything negative, and I don't need to feel anger or fear or any of that stuff. And it's not that at all. It's that, when you have a complex, for example, which is very common with business owners and women, the imposter syndrome, when you have an issue with money and you're shying away from large, contracts or abilities or opportunities to make large sums of money, most of the time that is connected with your perception of wealth and rich people and all of these things that you might have learned from when you were younger. And so you are now, and I worked with one client who, her client offered her more for, the services she was doing, because he was like, no, this is worth much more. And I want you to be really committed. And so and he literally almost tripled her rate. And so I told her, I was like, this is a really good teachable moment. That usually does not happen. If somebody gets a good deal, they're going to be really excited and be like, okay, well, if she doesn't know her worth, then I'm just going to go with it. But this is an example of you not understanding your own self-worth, and where that comes from is a deep place inside that has to be rooted out, right? Like I kind of describe the mind, the untrained mind, as a forest, right? You go into a forest and it's just all these flowers and plants and everything growing everywhere, because that's the way seeds grow in the forest. Wherever they're blown, they land and they grow. So the untrained mind is similar to that. We've got all kinds of negative thoughts and things flying around. We have to, instead of treating it like a forest, treat it like a garden, right? So we plant the seeds that we want to grow. And then you just practice nurturing them. And those are the habits of mindfulness. Those are the habits of manifestation.
This does take adult supervision, doesn't it? You can't.
It does.
This is
because you want to do it.
This is a very big lift for somebody, right? And you're talking about getting out of your own way. You're talking about overcoming the fear of failure and the fear of success. Both equally tormenting to so many people when we can't put it into perspective. So I do want to talk about has it been different? How has this approach and how has going about business and your career been different as a Black woman in business? How has that, or has it not affected you?
Well, it's very well known that, in the Black community, there are so many obstacles. I have been very fortunate to not have experienced as many, but they're there. And I think that, again, what your perspective is of what you can do, it starts there, right? So while there may be, for example, some people who become really successful and they say, I made it out of this, neighborhood or area or, abusive relationship, and I'm so happy. And other people just couldn't get out of it, and that just became their life. The difference is not because they're geniuses. It's not because they, had an enormous, amount of money or opportunity. There were some opportunities probably, but it really started within them wanting to achieve more and believing that they could, regardless of what the reality around them was showing them. And it starts, there. So when we're going through the world and we're part of a group that is known to have things like institutional racism that is just permeating every part of your success. I mean, as a woman, as a Black woman, we've got like so many obstacles already set up there, but you do have to work a little bit harder. I think that that's something that I've always experienced, is needing to, and that was something I had to get over as well, as a constant need to prove myself when I first started my business. As a new business owner.
Difficulties. We just had a little glitch there. So for those who are watching, just hang with us. A little glitch.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep. You're just fine.
Yeah. So I did have a few things, where I had to really develop my own sense of self. And what does that mean? And not lowballing myself or removing myself from opportunities because I figured that maybe I wouldn't be, chosen for something. When you're struggling with an obstacle, whether it is being a Black person, whether it's being a woman, it all starts with how you see yourself and how much of the outside world you're going to let affect your inside perspective. And that's where self-identity comes from, usually, right? It's, what is the world telling me I am, or how I am? As we grow up, people say, oh, you're really athletic, or you're really beautiful. And then we develop these thoughts about ourselves. But at some point, you realize that you have also developed some negative thoughts about yourself. And that could have come from the outside world. It could have come from a parent. It could have come from an ex. But you now have the responsibility to root up those plants, those weeds, stop watering the seeds that you don't want to grow in your garden, and really start working on yourself. One of the things that we talked about briefly was, when entrepreneurs start on this journey, they actively have to shut off parts of themselves just to be able to function in the business world.
Give me some more insights on that, because that, I think, is a very complex,
It's important to understand, right? So, especially for women, we have this perspective that, we have to be more masculine, or we have to have our hair short, or we have to, fit in certain boxes just to be able to be accepted in the business world. And so it's not just those superficial things. There's also internal things that we stop doing as women, as entrepreneurs, whether it's, a part of your personality that's really, funny, or whatever it is. But those parts of yourself that you're actively shutting off to be able to grow your business, to be able to survive in the business world with your male counterparts, your white counterparts, your, whatever counterparts you're around, those are the parts that are the crux of mindfulness that you have to resurrect to be able to grow in the way that you need to.
So when you say resurrect them, are you actually meaning acknowledge that they're there and figure out a way to manage through those thoughts or those beliefs?
No, I mean acknowledging that they're there, but also figuring out how to give them life again. Okay. So, for example, there's one of my clients had a hobby that she really enjoyed that she didn't want to talk about because she thought it was, too weird or strange. And she didn't want to write when we were writing her story, because I always believe in stories. And I think that it's really important for people to put their story out there, because being relatable is very, very important for business. She didn't want to write her story because she was like, I think that people are going to think this is weird. And I don't want to say these things about myself. I just want it to sound professional. But in a sea of information, and when everyone sounds the same, and there's only so much you can do with job titles and descriptions, the only thing that makes you different is that one piece of yourself that another person can see humanness in, that another person can see relatability in. And those parts are the parts that we've shut off. And so when you're going through your business experience, and you're not actively taking the time to listen to yourself, to acknowledge the parts of yourself that you love, that you want the world to know about, and work those into who you are as a business, you start to fade. You start to fade away. Who you are starts to become locked away. I imagine it as, someone in a castle. You're behind the doors. You are behind the doors, and your soldiers are the ones that deal with the world. That becomes extremely lonely. And on the entrepreneurship journey, it's already very lonely. You're already working very hard to build relationships while you're working all night and, building your greatness. But you have to be able to tap into those areas of yourself that you're no longer accessing. And that is a part of mindfulness. And once you go to those parts, it can be really emotional, right? Because some of those parts we've tucked deep down because we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to deal with the fact that our grandmother, used to always tell us that, rich people are crazy and they're evil. And that's why we now can't write a contract that is more than a certain amount, or why we subconsciously reject the ability to be successful. because there's something deeper in that. When I was doing marketing and branding, when you first met me, when I was just strictly doing, branding work, one of the things that I noticed is that it doesn't matter how many tools you have. I had clients who had gone through 7 different consultants, and only once they got to me and we started talking about what's going on inside and then started applying the tools that everyone else uses for their business, were they able to start seeing growth. It sounds like it's crazy because everyone wants to just get to the bottom line. But you have to understand the only bottom line that matters is you and how you're feeling and what you think about yourself, because that starts to dictate everything that can happen in your life and your business.
So the mindfulness so let me just make sure that I've got the process correct. So the mindfulness check actually happens first.
It has to happen.
Regardless of what activities you do, regardless of what job you're in, regardless of what business you're in, if you are not mindful and starting out in the right direction, understanding how your thoughts can impact your business decisions, your results may not be what you're hoping for. You may not get those. Is that where most of your clients are getting stuck? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
They want what they want. They know how to get what they want, but something mentally in that mindset is not allowing them to do what they need to do. I totally get that.
And let me tell you how that resurrects. Okay. So let's say, Mark thinks that he just needs a new website. I just need a new website and a good marketing funnel. So, okay, you've got a new website and a good marketing funnel. Let's say best case scenario, you start getting 20 new customers a day. Because Mark doesn't understand that he has now a complex, he's always had a complex about himself and being able to be a good leader. He's now starting to question what he's able to delegate to his team. Or he starts over micromanaging them because he's subconsciously sabotaging this success that's right in front of his face because he doesn't believe that he can be a good leader. So he starts doing things that bad leaders do subconsciously. And now that then trickles down and ruins the efforts that the staff is able to do. It shuts down certain funnels because I don't really like this, or I think that this should be, a different way, but he doesn't really know about what he's talking about because he already hired somebody for that weakness, but he's not letting them be his strength. So it's hard to understand when you're just looking at, I just need results. But if you start, which is why I always recommend people keep journals. I mean, they are the best source of personal data analytics that you can have.
Yeah.
You need to be journaling, because if you just go back and look at some of your journal entries from the past years, especially if it's your business journal, you will find amazing trends on thoughts, on ideas, on concepts that you tried to implement that didn't work. And then you'll be able to see, oh, wow, I have an issue with this. This has been going on for a long time. But if you're not able to track that, which is one of the things that I do in my consulting, is make sure that you're tracking those things. You don't know what you don't know. Okay, most marketers are this way, right? Data. We need proof. We need to, before we move, we need to, make sure we have the numbers and the statistics right. Why don't we do that with ourselves? Right. Why are we not able to do that on our own for growing our own life?
We're too close to this. We're too close to the subject. That's why we can't do this on our own. It does really and truly require outside. I don't want to say monitoring, but it requires outside assistance, right?
Well, and
that's where your coach comes on.
Yeah, and I think that we're notoriously putting ourselves last. Like, I don't need to think about myself. I'll just, I don't need to exercise today. I don't need to do anything. I need to work. I can't tell you how important it is for so many of the entrepreneurs that I meet to I just need to work. There is no yoga. There is no monitoring, what you're eating, because foods directly affect your mood and your stress level. There's none of that, because the focus is the only important thing I need to do is get customers in. But best case scenario, you get the customers. Why is it still not working? Why is it that you have not been able to get customers? It's not just the tools that you're not able to implement or that you didn't have a good, marketing consultant. It has to do with what you see for yourself. And there's a big rabbit hole there, but you gotta dig it out, because the more that we continue on these paths, right? Our brain habits in our brain are these little neural pathways that just get deeper the more we do something. So the longer you put this off, the harder it is going to be to break the habits that are preventing you from getting to where you want to be.
Yeah. I think you better send me a bill for this. So, this was great. So we've got somebody writing in. Okay. If you hire someone for your weakness, let him or her be your strength. Makes so much sense. There you go. So yeah, where do I begin?
And I know that that's scary. Okay, I just want to say
it's scary.
It is scary for some people.
I was just going to say, I take that back, because I think whenever you're looking at analyzing yourself, it's a horrifying venture. It really can be, because how many of us really want to take a look at the truth, right? It's like stepping on the scale every day, which unfortunately I started doing. And it's a truth that I was really trying to, overlook. But there's just so many days that you can go in your closet and say, no, that's a lie. It's this side that works. So
let me tell you how I want to say something about that, because I did a different method to lose. I lost 45 pounds when I first started this journey that I was trying to lose for 4.5 years. Okay. 4.5 years, that same 45 pounds, that goddamn 45 pounds, I was trying to lose it, okay? And the only way that changed, it wasn't because I was stepping on the scale every day. It wasn't because I was like, okay, listen, acknowledge it, you're fat. You need to get in the gym. That wasn't the way that it happened. I bought clothes that were too small for me. I hung them up in my closet where I could see them, not tucked away, because you know how sometimes we have like clothes from high school or something and we tuck them one day and the second. I put it where I could see it. And that was my vision for myself. And so instead of visualizing myself as this unhealthy person and I'm just beating myself up about it every day, I started to get excited about this cute little dress that I just bought. And I was like, I'm going to look so nice. And then I started thinking about how nice I would look in it. And I promise you, Lee, I lost 45 pounds in 8 months. Okay. And after having, and that might be slow to some people, it might be fast, but it was very fast for me, because I've been trying to lose it for 4 years, 4.5 years. Yeah. And let me tell you how that works. It's not magic, right? You're not just thinking your way into a new space with nothing happening. Thoughts lead to feelings. Feelings lead to the actions. The actions change our lives.
That's right.
You have to start with the thought. You have to have the feeling, that excitement of that cute little dress, that, seeing myself in it, my flat stomach, whatever. Then it goes to the actions. I started going to the gym, being really excited every day, but it was because I had that in my mind first. So one of the things that I teach entrepreneurs to do is to start with the vision. The answers, we often go backwards. We start with the to-do list, and then we try to figure out, how are we going to do it? You don't start with the how or the to-do list. You start with the vision. And if you have a vision that's very clear about something that you want, as you're imagining it, as you're looking at it every day, certain solutions just float into your mind about how to do that.
So the woman from whose name is completely escaping me this moment, she is the founder of Spanx. What is her name?
Oh, I don't remember her name. I know who you're talking about, though.
I'm embarrassed to say that I can't remember her name. She's, anyway, she echoes exactly what you're saying.
Really?
So, yes. Almost word for word. So last question, believe it or not, we've only got 1 minute left. So I know it went fast. So what took you from Gradient to going to work for a company full time again, and then doing this mindfulness? Because that's a big shift.
It is a big shift. And it's one that's really, it can be hard to do for entrepreneurs. If you've done something for a long time, and you can have some feelings of failure around that. But for me, practically, it came down to, once COVID hit, a lot of my customers' businesses were affected. And, I needed to make a shift. But that shift started mentally, and it took me a long time to get there because, like I said, it was really hard for me. But what I learned was that I really enjoyed working with people. I really loved what I was doing, and I work now for an amazing company, called Etheris in Rockville that is in the IT space, doing their marketing and sales. And it's similar to the way that I work, now, but I still am able to have this kind of perspective about it as like a car, right? As entrepreneurs, we just think we need to just keep going, just go, 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 and don't stop. But what happens to a car when you just drive it and you don't stop to refuel yourself?
Yeah.
Your car,
it fades
down. Yeah. So you can keep going. I could have kept going, but guess what might have happened? Something bad could have happened, or I could have started to, have my mentality affected by these thoughts of failure and all that stuff, instead of realizing that a shift doesn't mean that you are failing in any way. It just means that you're making a shift. And I love what I do. These people are literally the most amazing group of people that I've had. This is only the second time in my life that I've worked with such an amazing team, and they're better than the first one. Wow. So I know that I will be, with them in some way for a very long time. And so it's brought me such great feelings and motivation, and I'm still able to, do what I do, but just on a smaller scale, which was better for me, in many ways as well. So
that's wonderful.
I'm afraid to make a shift. Never worry.
What a wonderful story, Khadija. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today and sharing this. I mean, it's pretty intimate what you shared. So, I'm sure that the audience will greatly appreciate it. If anybody wants to get a hold of Khadija, connect with her on LinkedIn. She accepts and welcomes connections, which I'm assuming that's the case, right, Khadija? I didn't even ask you.
I do, and I just wanted to quickly talk about, I have my new book that I wrote, Green Light Manifestations. It's all about what I talk about, what I teach. I released the hard copies 3 weeks ago, and they sold out in a day. So I'm trying to get hard copies back, but I do have a waiting list. So if you want to
congratulations!
Yeah, there'll be more in by the end of the month. But I will be restocking, but please do put your name on the list. It is everything that I have learned, everything that I teach. And, I just think it's a great little starting point. It's a very shorthand book, but it's really good. And I'm happy to have been able to go through that journey. And thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. And thank you for announcing that here today. It completely escaped me. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. I'm glad to see that good things happen to good people. But a lot of that is because of your mindfulness. You have a vision, and you are executing on that vision. And so that's easier said than done, right?
Very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Lee. This is wonderful.
Appreciate you very much. All right, everybody, have a great day until tomorrow, when we have another LinkedIn Live with Eliana Hassan and Sean Budnick, who are Fortune 100 leaders and entrepreneurs who are going to talk to us about why women don't ask for what they want.
I'm tuning in.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Thanks, everyone. Khadija, hang on the line for just a second while I leave everyone else. Take care.